Right, let's bring you this story now. South African Airways may have recorded a loss of more than 9 billion rand in the past year. That's if previous numbers are anything to go by. The national carrier's 2018 annual report has not been published 17 months after the end of that financial year. Between 2012 and 2017, SAA suffered a total loss of nearly 18 billion rand. Now, to talk to us about the woes at the national carrier, Guy Leach from the SA Flyer magazine joins us via Skype now. Guy, good morning to you. Thank you for waking up with us. Management taking 11 months before they could publish the 2017 year-end results. Surely this kind of behavior cannot be tolerated. What are they hiding?
Yeah, well, I think that the actual facts of the numbers in terms of profit and loss numbers are known. One of the normal problems that they have releasing numbers is the ability for the auditors to write the business as a going concern. And for that it needs endless government backings or guarantees, probably at this stage a recapitalization. And that has just not been forthcoming. So I think we have a reasonably good idea of the numbers as have emerged from SAA's reports to the two parliamentary standing committees, SCOPA and SOA. And yeah, those indicate a loss in the region of 5 billion rand, certainly far more than was budgeted. Probably not quite as bad as the 9 million rand that was touted or promoted in that report, because I think it did miss some of the key facts that have changed since the original numbers were produced 2 years ago.
SAA, as we've just mentioned, Guy, it's been in decline since 2012. You'll tell me if this is a rhetorical question. Can this company be saved?
It can be saved. It's still actually, funnily enough, despite what people like to believe, quite a good airline operationally. It's the second best airline in Africa now after Ethiopian. It regularly wins Skytrax awards, which are awards for cabin service and on-time performance. It's got a good fleet, a relatively young and modern fleet now. It's got good access to routes. And operationally, it's really not bad. Yes, it structural problems. It does have a culture of malfeasance, to quote the previous CEO, Mr. Viyani Johana. It does have bad problems with procurement. It does have bad problems with overstaffing. But those problems can be saved by the right management. I think that Mr. Johana, in the 18 months he was really in the hot seat, made some significant moves in terms of cutting loss-making routes. That cut down on revenue and cut down to a lesser extent on costs. So, yes, the losses were bigger than he'd budgeted for, and he didn't get on top of them. But if there was more of that, and it was continued with proper support from the state, and that means both financial support so that the salaries can get paid every month, as well as the additional capital to reduce the interest burden, well then I think that, yes, the airline can be turned around. What is needed right now is an absolute overhaul of the senior management team. Obviously, we need a new chairperson, and most importantly, we need a new CEO in the airline. And I think that what the country cannot afford is to have another appointee, no matter how competent he may be as a businessman, who doesn't have airline experience. Mr. Johana took, a commendably short time, but he still took 6 months to a year to get on top of the actual operational issues of the airline. Yeah. And the first thing he had to do was really to sort out huge problems in, for instance, SAA Technical. If he hadn't sorted those problems out, the airline would have been grounded in the same way that the Civil Aviation Authority grounded SEMAIR. That would have been an absolute tragedy of enormous proportions. So there were fires that had to be put out. You need a new CEO who has the requisite airline experience, and airline turnaround experience. There are probably only 10 of those in the world, and quite frankly, none of them are going to be found in South Africa, with the possible exception of Mr. Nico Bezuidenhout. So we have to be able to recruit the right person from around the world and give him the necessary support to allow him to get on with the job.
Importantly, Guy, and just finally and briefly from you, the turnaround strategy that Johana had wanted support in from the board. Mr. Magwaza is now gone, the former chairperson of SAA. Do you think that turnaround strategy is still being followed?
Well, no, it's not, because the current acting CEO, Mr. Zuptramasiya, doesn't really have the ability to push through the difficult changes that are required by that turnaround strategy. One of the things it requires is, in fact, a headcount reduction of nearly 20%. Therefore, I suspect, well, I know that there is, in fact, increasing pressure building from outside agencies, oddly enough, the unions, to get ahead with saving the airline by making these necessary hard changes. The government doesn't have the political will to really bite the bullet, if I can say that, and force through the necessary changes that are required. That is why organizations like, or trade unions like Solidarity, I think, are under increasing pressure to actually force through. They are talking about a business rescue plan. I mean, the situation is that dire. But I think that if a force that powerful is not applied to government, they will not actually make the difficult decisions required to save the airline. And beyond that, it will just continue to either slowly bleed the taxpayer by now 5 billion rand a year. It used to lose 1 billion rand a year, and we thought that was really bad news. Now it's losing 5 billion rand a year. In my opinion, that is not sustainable, especially with the costs of the ongoing disaster of Eskom.
Yeah.
So, and yet SAA can be turned around. It just requires proper political will and putting the right people in place. And quite frankly, if government's hand has to be forced to do that, well, I think that that's what's going to be necessary. I think it's going to be extremely interesting to see how the situation unfolds in the next couple of weeks, probably, because there is a lot of pressure mounting.
All right. Thank you very much for waking up to talk to us. Guy Leach, he is from the SA Flyer magazine.